It's 11:07 p.m. Your room is quiet. The world feels paused. Your phone feels alive. You tell yourself you're just going to scroll for a minute. Just 1 minute to relax your brain. No big decisions. No buying anything. Just entertainment before sleep. Then a video slides onto your screen that doesn't feel like an ad. It feels like content. Someone is unboxing something that looks oddly satisfying to use. The lighting is perfect. The sound is clean. The comments are full of people saying this changed their life. You feel a tiny click in your chest. Not excitement. Not logic. Recognition. Like your brain quietly whispering, "This is for you." You didn't need this product before you saw it. But now that you've seen it, your mind is filling in the gaps. You imagine how convenient it would be. How much time it would save you. How future you will thank present you for being smart enough to buy it now. There's a little banner at the bottom of the screen. A timer ticking down. Only a few left. People are watching this right now. The words are calm. The message is urgent. You don't think about your bank balance. You don't think about the drawer full of things you've already bought. You don't think about how many times you've felt this exact feeling before. You just feel a subtle pressure. Not panic. Pressure. So you tap. Your heart rate changes slightly. Not because you're scared. Because your brain thinks it's winning something. You add it to your cart. You feel a brief sense of relief. Like you just solved a small problem in your life. Like you just took control of something. And then the app thanks you. Your order is confirmed. The moment passes. The excitement fades. You put your phone down and go to sleep. 3 days later, a box shows up. You open it with curiosity. You hold the item in your hand. And the moment feels strangely flat. Not bad. Just empty. It's not that the product is useless. It's that the feeling you were promised already happened. Your brain collected its reward earlier. The reward wasn't owning the thing. The reward was wanting it. This is the part nobody teaches you about money. Your brain doesn't get excited by ownership. It gets excited by anticipation. The chase is the pleasure. The capture is neutral. That tiny surge you felt when you tapped buy wasn't happiness. It was momentum. It was your brain rewarding itself for moving towards something new. Your mind evolved to seek novelty because novelty once meant survival. New food sources, new tools, new shelter. In a world of scarcity, curiosity was a survival skill. In a world of abundance, curiosity becomes a vulnerability. Every scroll feeds your novelty system. Every product is presented as a potential upgrade to your life. Not a big upgrade, a small one, a micro improvement, just enough to feel responsible instead of impulsive. And this is where the trap gets deep. Most modern purchases are framed as self-improvement. This will make you more productive. This will make you healthier. This will make you more organized. This will make you look better. This will make your life easier. So when you buy, you're not just buying an object. You're voting for the person you want to be. The organized version of you. The disciplined version of you. The confident version of you. But you can't buy an identity. You can only rent the feeling of becoming one. That's why so many purchases end up in used. Not because the product is bad, but because the product was never the solution. The solution was supposed to be a change in behavior, habits, or identity. And no object can do that for you. Now add pricing psychology on top of that. Prices don't feel like numbers. They feel like stories. A price ending in 9 feels smaller. A discount feels like a win. Free feels like zero risk. Limited stock feels like competition. Fast checkout feels like relief. Your rational brain can explain all of this. But your buying brain doesn't care. It responds to patterns, not explanations. This is why you can know you're being manipulated and still fall for it. Awareness does not equal immunity. It just gives you a fighting chance. Then there's the pain of paying. Spending money registers as loss in the brain. So modern systems are designed to numb that loss. When you don't feel the pain, you don't hesitate. When you don't hesitate, you spend more. When you spend more, the system wins. Tiny frictions used to protect you. Counting cash, signing receipts, waiting in lines, typing card numbers. Each step was a moment to reconsider. Now those moments are gone. You're not bad at budgeting. You're operating in a frictionless spending environment with a brain that evolved for friction. Social platforms made this worse. They blended entertainment and shopping into one stream. Your emotional guard drops when you're entertained. You're relaxed. You're open. You're receptive. So when a product appears in that state, it doesn't feel like selling. It feels like discovery. You didn't choose to shop. Shopping chose you. And when regret shows up later, it feels personal. Like you failed. Like you lacked discipline. Like everyone else has this under control except you. But regret is a feature of the system, not a personal flaw. If you design a world that rewards impulse and numbs consequence, people will act impulsively and feel consequences later. That's not weakness. That's predictable behavior. So how do you protect yourself without turning into someone who never enjoys anything? You stop fighting your impulses and start designing around them. You accept that you will want things. You accept that novelty will always feel tempting. You accept that late-night scrolling will weaken your judgment. Then you build systems that catch you when your discipline is tired. Delay is powerful. When you want something, pause. Not to punish yourself, to let the emotion cool. Most impulses are emotional spikes that fade quickly. What remains after the spike is what you actually want. Make spending visible again, not to feel guilty, to feel informed. When money becomes abstract, choices become careless. When money becomes tangible, choices become intentional. Reduce the number of places where temptation lives. You don't need to live inside marketplaces disguised as social feeds. You don't need to expose your tired brain to endless persuasion. And most importantly, decide what kind of life you're actually building. Not the aesthetic version, the lived version. If you value freedom, then every unnecessary purchase is a small delay of that freedom. If you value peace, then financial clutter is noise in your nervous system. If you value experiences, then objects that. Don't create experiences or distractions. Your money is not just currency. It's leverage over your future options. Every dollar you don't spend on impulse is a dollar you can use to say no to something you don't want to do later. The system wants you reactive. It profits when you don't pause. It thrives when you confuse desire with need. It grows when you trade long-term control for short-term comfort. You don't need to escape the system. You just need to stop moving on autopilot inside it. The next time you feel that quiet pressure to buy something you didn't want 10 seconds ago, don't ask yourself, can I afford this? Ask yourself, is this the version of me I'm trying to become? Because every purchase is a vote, not just for a product, but for the direction of your life. There's a moment most people never notice. It happens right after you almost buy something and stop yourself. Not the moment you resist, the moment after. Your brain feels slightly uncomfortable, not because you lost something real, but because you lost the feeling of wanting. That tiny rush you were about to get from clicking buy never arrived. And your nervous system doesn't like that emptiness. This is why resisting impulse purchases can feel weirdly unsatisfying at first. You're not just saying no to an object. You're saying no to a chemical reward your brain expected. It's like reaching for your phone and realizing it's not there. There's a small moment of withdrawal. Not dramatic, just uncomfortable enough that your brain will try to pull you back next time. This is where most people fail. They think discipline should feel good. It doesn't. Discipline feels boring. It feels anticlimactic. It feels like nothing happened. And modern systems have trained us to crave something happening all the time. Silence feels wrong now. Stillness feels unproductive. Not buying feels like missing out. Your brain is used to constant stimulation, constant novelty, constant reward. So when you remove one source of stimulation, the mind goes looking for another. This is why people replace one impulse with another. They stop buying things online and start overeating. They stop scrolling one app and start doom scrolling another. The underlying pattern is the same. A restless mind looking for a quick hit of feeling. The real work isn't stopping purchases. It's getting comfortable with the absence of constant stimulation. Learning to sit with the quiet moment where you didn't act. That quiet is the space where control lives. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of what you buy impulsively isn't about the item. It's about mood regulation. You're bored. You're stressed. You're lonely. You're tired. You're overwhelmed. Buying gives you a brief sense of movement. Like you did something. Like you nudged your life forward. But movement isn't progress. It just feels like progress because something changed. A cart filled. A confirmation screen appeared. A box is on the way. Real progress feels slower. It doesn't come with a tracking number. It doesn't arrive in packaging. It doesn't show up in your inbox. That's why it's less addictive. Your brain is wired to prefer immediate feedback over delayed results. This is why it's easier to buy a planner than to actually plan. Easier to buy workout gear than to work out. Easier to buy books than to read them. Buying gives you the emotional reward without requiring the behavioral change. The industry knows this. They sell the feeling of improvement without requiring the effort of improvement. You don't buy the gym membership because you love treadmills. You buy it because it makes you feel like a person who goes to the gym. You don't buy productivity tools because you love tools. You buy them because they temporarily make you feel productive. The gap between who you are and who you want to be is emotionally uncomfortable. Products promise to bridge that gap instantly. Habits take time, so your brain chooses the shortcut that feels like progress. Now let's talk about comparison. Because comparison quietly fuels a huge amount of spending. You're exposed to other people's highlight reels constantly. Not their normal days, not their messy rooms, not their boring routines. Their wins, their upgrades, their best angles. Your nervous system doesn't process that as curated content. It processes it as social information. It subtly tells you where you stand in the tribe. And when you feel behind, your brain looks for ways to catch up. Buying becomes a way to reduce that feeling of lag. Not because you truly need the item, but because it signals that you're moving forward too, that you're not stuck, that you're participating in progress. But here's the trap. The people you're comparing yourself to are also chasing. They're also filling carts. They're also feeling behind in some other area. The comparison loop has no finish line. So the solution isn't to stop wanting things. Wanting is human. The solution is to slow the loop down enough that wanting doesn't automatically become buying. You can want something and not act on it. That is a skill. And like any skill, it feels awkward at first. Then it feels normal. Then it feels empowering. When you delay purchases, something interesting happens. You start noticing patterns in your own desires. You realize you're drawn to certain aesthetics, certain identities, certain promises. You might notice that you buy things when you're tired, or lonely, or procrastinating, or avoiding something uncomfortable. That awareness gives you options. You can address the feeling instead of soothing it with a purchase. Rest instead of scroll. Talk to someone instead of browse. Take a break instead of shop. This is not about perfection. You will still buy things you don't need sometimes. The goal isn't to eliminate mistakes. It's to make them rarer and less expensive. Because every small reduction in unconscious spending compounds into something meaningful over time. Not just financially, mentally. You start trusting yourself more. You start feeling less controlled by impulses. You start noticing when something is trying to rush you. And when you notice the rush, it loses power. The world is loud. It constantly tells you that you're missing something, that you need to upgrade, that you're one purchase away from being more organized, more confident, more complete. But completeness doesn't come from accumulation. It comes from alignment, from spending in ways that reflect who you actually are and what you actually care about. When your spending aligns with your values, money feels calm. When your spending is reactive, money feels stressful. Not because the numbers are different, because your nervous system knows when your actions don't match your intentions. The system will not slow down for you. The ads will keep getting better. The checkout flows will keep getting smoother. The urgency cues will keep getting louder. The personalization will keep getting sharper. So your defense is not strength. It's awareness plus environment plus time. Slow the moment down. Create friction. Choose your values deliberately. And forgive yourself when you slip. Control is not about never being tempted. It's about noticing the temptation before it turns into action. And once you start noticing, the game changes. At some point, something subtle shifts. You stop feeling hunted by every new product. Not because the products disappeared, but because you started recognizing the pattern behind them. You notice how every offer feels urgent, how every ad frames itself as a solution to a problem you weren't thinking about a moment ago, how every countdown timer is really counting down your attention, not the product's availability. You start seeing the invisible machinery behind the screen, the testing, the optimization, the tiny tweaks to colors, words, sounds, and buttons designed to nudge you a few millimeters closer to clicking. And here's the strange part. Once you see the machinery, the magic weakens. Not completely, but enough. You still feel the pull. You just don't mistake it for truth anymore. You realize that most urgency is manufactured. Most scarcity is simulated. Most solutions are exaggerations. Most lifestyles being sold to you are staged. This doesn't make you cynical. It makes you literate in persuasion. You stop asking, "Why do I want this?" and start asking, "What emotion is this ad trying to activate in me right now?" Is it insecurity? Is it boredom? Is it fear of missing out? Is it the desire to feel ahead of others? Is it the fantasy of becoming a different version of yourself without doing the work of becoming that person? When you name the emotion, the spell weakens. Not because the emotion disappears, but because you're no longer confusing emotion with necessity. There's a quiet confidence that grows when you begin choosing deliberately, not aggressively rejecting everything, not becoming minimal for the sake of an aesthetic, but choosing what enters your life, choosing what takes your money, choosing what deserves your attention. You start to feel less scattered, less reactive, less pulled in 1,000 directions by things that promise to improve your life in 10 seconds. And something unexpected happens. You enjoy what you already own more. When you stop constantly chasing the next thing, the current things get space to matter. Your room feels calmer. Your mind feels quieter. Your decisions feel heavier in a good way. You realize that most stress around money isn't about the amount. It's about the lack of intention. When money leaves your life without your conscious participation, it creates anxiety. When money moves with your permission, it creates stability. This isn't about being frugal. It's about being deliberate. It's about reclaiming a small piece of agency in a system designed to automate your spending. You don't have to beat the system. You just have to stop letting it rush you. Because the system thrives on speed, on impulsive clicks, on late-night decisions, on emotional moments, on distraction. You thrive on slowness, on space between urge and action, on choosing rather than reacting, on aligning your money with your values. Your future self is quietly shaped by these tiny moments. The moment you pause instead of tap, the moment you close the app instead of adding to cart, the moment you decide that the fantasy being sold to you isn't worth trading your life energy for. No one moment changes everything, but the pattern of moments does. Your life will not be transformed by a product arriving in a box. It will be shaped by the habits you practice when no one is watching, by the choices you make when your brain is tired, by the small decisions that don't feel dramatic but add up over time. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be awake a little more often than you used to be. So the next time your thumb pauses over a buy button late at night, don't judge yourself. Don't shame yourself. Just notice the moment. Notice the urge. Notice the story your brain is telling you about how this purchase will make your life better. Notice the urgency being applied to you. And then decide, calmly, whether this is truly how you want to spend your stored time, your future options, your life energy. Because every purchase is not just a transaction. It's a tiny story about who you are becoming. Make sure it's a story you actually want to live. There's a strange moment that happens after you've been intentional with your money for a while. You start noticing how often you're being invited to feel dissatisfied. Not directly, subtly. A new version, a slightly better model, a trend you didn't know existed yesterday, a lifestyle that looks effortless and curated. None of it is yelling at you. It's whispering. And whispers are harder to ignore because they feel like your own thoughts. You begin to realize that a lot of modern discomfort is manufactured, not your real problems, but the feeling that you're always one step behind, one purchase away from being caught up, one upgrade away from feeling enough. Once you notice that pattern, you start questioning the voice in your head that says, maybe I should get this. Maybe this will finally make things easier. Maybe this is the thing I was missing. That voice doesn't come from wisdom. It comes from repetition, from being shown thousands of small suggestions over time until they start sounding like your own ideas. This is why constant exposure is powerful, not because any single ad convinces you, but because repetition rewires what feels normal to want. After a while, restraint stops feeling like deprivation and starts feeling like clarity. You're not denying yourself joy. You're choosing not to outsource your decisions to algorithms. There's a calm that comes from knowing your desires are yours, not planted, not rushed, not manufactured. You start noticing that when you buy something intentionally, it feels different. It carries weight. It feels chosen. You use it more. You appreciate it more. Not because the item is magical, but because the decision was conscious. This is what control actually feels like. Not tight fists, not constant self-denial, but quiet confidence in your choices. The culture around you will keep trying to speed you up. Faster shipping, fewer steps, more personalization, more urgency. The goal is always the same. Reduce the time between desire and action. So your counter move is simple. Create space. Space between seeing and buying. Space between wanting and acting. Space between feeling behind and trying to catch up with stuff. That space is where freedom lives. When you create space, you also create room for better questions. Do I actually want this? Or do I want the feeling this promises? Is this aligned with who I am or with who I feel pressured to be? Will this matter in a month, or is it just loud right now? The more often you ask better questions, the quieter the noise becomes. And here's the quiet truth most people never hear. You don't need to fix your spending. You need to protect your attention. Because where your attention goes, your money follows. And where your money goes, your future options follow. Attention is the real currency of this economy. Your money is just how that currency gets extracted. If you guard your attention, your spending naturally becomes more intentional. If you let your attention be farmed by endless feeds, your spending will always feel chaotic. This is why small changes matter more than dramatic ones. Not because they look impressive, but because they stick. Choosing not to scroll when you're tired. Choosing not to browse when you're bored. Choosing to pause when you feel rushed. These are boring choices. They don't feel heroic. They don't feel productive, but they quietly reshape your life. You don't win this by being perfect. You win by being slightly more present than the systems that want you distracted. And over time, something changes. You feel less urgency to upgrade your life through purchases. You feel more grounded in the life you're already living. Not because you gave up desire, but because you stopped letting desire drive the wheel. The world will always try to sell you a faster version of happiness. But happiness doesn't arrive in packaging. It grows in the spaces you protect from being constantly sold to.